I'm Riley. Standing on this stage, looking out at the sea of faces, I can't help but be transported back to that fateful day at my graduation. The auditorium was filled with the sounds of celebration, yet when my name was called, there was only silence. I remember walking across the stage, the weight of my graduation robe heavy on my shoulders. I looked down at the front row, where I had fought so hard to reserve 3 seats. They were the best seats in the house, but they were empty. My parents, Mark and Lisa, and my brother Ethan, weren't there. They had chosen a fishing trip over 6 years of my hard work. It all started when I was 22. Ethan, 2 years younger than me, went straight to college after high school. Our parents, who owned a small local business, spared no expense for him. They paid for his tuition, dorm, and even bought him a new car. They threw him a huge send-off party, bragging to everyone about how proud they were of their star. When I told them I wanted to go to college to study finance, their reaction was cold. My dad, Mark, barely looked up from his paperwork and said, "Good for you, Riley. But don't expect us to pay for it. We've already spent a fortune on Ethan." My mom, Lisa, sighed and reminded me that I still needed to help with the family business and pay my share of the rent. For the next 6 years, my life was a blur of work and study. I worked at a coffee shop from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. dealing with grumpy customers and the smell of coffee grounds. Then I'd rush to night classes. My feet would ache, and my eyes would be heavy with exhaustion. One day, during my second year of college, I had a major finance exam. I came home from work to find the house in a mess. Ethan was playing video games on the couch, and my mom was out shopping. I asked Ethan to help clean up, but he just laughed and said he was too busy. My dad, when he came home, scolded me for not taking care of the house. I ended up staying up all night to study and clean, and I still managed to get a B on the exam. I tried to share my achievements with them. When I made the dean's list, I brought the letter home, hoping for some recognition. But it ended up in the trash, and my mom said it was just junk mail. After that, I stopped sharing. I became a shadow in my own home, just the one who worked and paid bills. 6 months before graduation, I told them the date. My dad said it was a busy time for the business, and my mom said she'd try to be there. 3 months before, I bought my cap and gown and showed it to them. Ethan made fun of me, saying I looked like a clown. 1 month before, I ordered 3 tickets for them, and I wrote their names on the envelopes in my neatest handwriting. They promised they'd be there. But the week before graduation, they decided to go on a fishing trip. They said it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I pleaded with them, but they didn't budge. On the morning of graduation, I woke up early, nervous and excited. I got dressed, and when I went to the kitchen, they were gone. I called them, but they didn't answer. At the graduation ceremony, as I walked across the stage, I felt a sense of emptiness. The silence that followed my name being called was deafening. When I got back to my seat, I received a text from Ethan. It was a picture of them fishing, with the caption, "Having a great time. Wish you were here." I walked out to the cold parking lot, holding my diploma. The wind hit my face, and I realized that the girl who had always tried to please them was gone. I decided then that I was done. I had saved $3,500 from my tips, and I used it to book a one-way ticket to Seattle. I didn't go home to pack. I just drove to the airport, bought a few essentials at a store, and got on the plane. When I landed in Seattle, I felt scared but also free. I found a small apartment and got a job at an accounting firm. I started to build a new life for myself. But the problems didn't end there. A few months later, I checked my credit report and found out that my parents had taken out loans in my name. The total debt was $50,000. They had used my good credit to finance their business and Ethan's car repairs. I was devastated, but I knew I had to fight. I reached out to my aunt, Grace, who lived in Seattle. She helped me find a lawyer, Mr. Thompson. He was a tough-looking man with a sharp mind. I flew back to my hometown to file a police report. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. My parents were furious when they found out that I had frozen their credit cards. They came to my motel room, pounding on the door and yelling at me. But I stood my ground. I called the police, and they were removed. With Mr. Thompson's help, I was able to clear my name. The credit bureaus removed the false debts from my record, and my credit score jumped from 520 to 760. A few years later, I was invited to speak at a financial empowerment conference in Seattle. I was nervous but also excited. I walked onto the stage, wearing a sharp suit, and started my speech. Halfway through, the doors at the back of the room burst open. My parents and Ethan walked in, looking disheveled. My dad was holding a sign that said, "Liar. She's ruining our lives." They started yelling at me, trying to disrupt the speech. But I didn't back down. I looked at the security guards and said, "These people are violating a restraining order. They are under investigation for identity theft and fraud. Please remove them." The room went silent. The security guards escorted them out, and the audience erupted in applause. In the end, my parents and Ethan were arrested. My dad and Ethan were sentenced to 2 years in prison, and my mom was given 5 years of probation. The experience was painful, but it made me stronger. Now, I live a quiet and fulfilling life. I have a beautiful garden, a lovely dog named Luna, and I'm a senior accountant at a well-respected firm. I still have my diploma, and I've framed it and hung it in my living room. It's a reminder of how far I've come. And whenever I see it, I'm reminded that I am a survivor. I often give talks to young people about financial literacy and setting boundaries. Just last week, a young girl came up to me after a talk. She told me that her parents wanted her to take out a loan for their business. I looked into her eyes and said, "Love is not about sacrificing your future. You don't owe them your life." She started to cry, but I gave her my email address and told her she wasn't alone. So, if your family never shows up for you, show up for yourself. Fill that empty seat with your own pride. Because in the end, you are the one who can create your own happiness.